Hello and welcome to Buck the Trend. I'm Steph Clutterbuck.
And I'm Matt Native, and we're here this week for a Texas Ironman recap.
We are indeed. I tell you what, it is nice to be home.
Yeah, and nice to bring the sunshine with us.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, heat wave or what, but I was cold yesterday, so I think Texas has broken me.
Yeah, it was funny going for a walk at lunch, and
Dress for winter.
I was in trousers. It was usually 20 odd degrees, I'd be in shorts at any cost. So
Yeah, it was odd, but it did get warm. I think maybe because I was stressed because I was putting my bike and wheels. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I got warm when I was doing that.
Yeah. So we're back home together, which is nice.
Yeah, for the first time in like 4 weeks.
Bikes, bags, luggage, everything made it back in one piece. You've rebuilt your bike and starting back training today, really.
Yeah, so we're kind of doing this out of order, aren't we, if we're talking about now before the race. Should we do the race and we'll talk about the next bit?
Go for it.
Okay, so Ironman Texas was on Saturday, and leading into the race, we had some crazy weather, and this context is important. So obviously I've been in the Woodlands for 2 weeks before race week, and the weather had been amazing. So it had been like 30 plus degrees. I'd been getting some really good training in. It hadn't been super humid, which is usual. So typically throughout April, Texas or the Woodlands gets humid. It decided to do that on race week. And from the day that Matt landed, or like 2 days later, it started to rain. And we had some insane thunderstorms and lightning that was just like across the whole sky. And you could see the clouds were on. It was really, very impressive storm.
Yeah, to the point that I think I woke up at 4 a.m. one morning and because I thought you'd turn the lights on.
Yeah, Matt didn't sleep because he thought I was flicking the lights on and off. I was not, obviously. And yeah, so from kind of that's the humidity basically arrived. So we had a couple of days where in the morning the readings were it's 100% humid. Like the air content was 100%, and it wasn't raining, and you could see it. You could literally see the water in the air. Everything was like slightly fuzzy, but it wasn't mist. It was just like water. I can't really. I've never experienced it before, and that happened for like 4 days, and the temperature was low, so it was back to kind of low to mid 20s. But the race day forecast for the whole week was saying it's going to be over 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, and I think the humidity side of things, the way I can compare it is when you go away camping and it's the summer's morning, but it's that sort of dewy water on the tent. And you wake up and the sun's just started coming through. So it gets quite hot in the tent in the morning, but it also feels quite sort of warm and thick air almost. That's how I'd compare it.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. Matt, could you pull the microphone closer to your face?
Can you not hear me?
There, perfect. We can hear you. It's just a little bit low on my readings. So I just want to make sure. Sorry, everyone.
I'll start shouting.
Yeah, so and then when you get to exercising, I can liken it to trying to breathe with a plastic bag over your face.
Yeah, and I did a bit of running whilst I was out there. I'm not quite the conditioned athlete you are, but I noticed when I was running at easy sort of pace, it was fine, manageable. It's as soon as you start upping the effort level is where you really notice it.
Yeah, because you just don't cool down because the sweat isn't evaporating off your skin. It's just there. And so the humidity on race day morning, I think, was like 85% when we started the swim, which is still pretty high. So that's kind of what Kona is in the mornings. It's like 85%. But it was much cooler than Hawaii. And then humidity dropped to, I think it was 60% by the run, which is still high. Especially given that the temperature was like 30 plus. So it was just that combination of the both meant it was quite an impressive day. And as we all know, heat is something that I've had to work really hard at, and we've gotten wrong Well, getting it wrong is a bit mean, I think, on ourselves. But I've raced in Kona twice. I've had heat stroke twice, so I was quite keen to like not get that again.
Yeah.
And that was the focus for the race. The only thing that I wanted to get from the day was to finish it without having any heat damage.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a long season. We didn't want to do anything silly. We've seen it happen before to people in Singapore in previous years. Start the season too hard, get a heat stroke, and it can sort of not write your season off, but put you back a few steps at least.
Exactly. And I've got a quick turnaround to the next race, so we needed to get through it in a way that I didn't kind of completely deplete myself, which is, it's a really difficult thing to do as an athlete, to turn up to a race and be like, actually, I'm intentionally not giving this 100%. But in not giving it 100%, I am giving it 100%, because the aim was to have like a full day that was a positive execution in some heat and humidity, which is 100% of what I was capable of doing. But that meant that swim, bike, run, none of them were executed as fast as I could do them.
Yeah, I think we kind of went into it with the understanding that we could probably roll the dice and take the risk and potentially gain 10, 20 minutes of extra speed, or the opposite effect of that, if it went wrong, was we'd lose over an hour potentially from walking the marathon.
And by gain and lose, Matt, means I would either go 10 to 20 minutes faster or I'd go over an hour slower.
I think that's how we sort of saw it, right?
Yeah, for sure. So the day itself, I'm not going to talk about the buck up. We're going to talk about that later because I'm sure everyone will appreciate it. But the swim, I have never... Okay, so there was a day of things that have never happened to me before, basically. On the swim, I got vertigo, which is really trippy because vertigo typically is something that happens when you're up really high. But it's nausea associated with loss of like balance, proprioception. It tends to be associated with fear of heights. But basically the water... So if you watch the stream, we started in the dark. The sun wasn't up yet, which in itself is a bit odd. The water was black. And I've swum in black water once before and lasted about 30 seconds before I got out because my brain was going crazy about what was living underneath it. But this was so black that I couldn't see my hands when I was swimming. So you're going along, but you can't see anything. You can't even see yourself. And it's like... Well, I mean, other than when I was breathing, it was like being blind. It was like not having any ability to see. And it just, I just got sick. Like, I just needed to throw up is the only way that I can explain it. Like, I felt horrendous. And I got off okay at the start. We looked back at the stream and I was actually quite well positioned until I got battered in the side. And... Yeah, like lost feet, but the intention again, like we say, wasn't to swim really fast. It was to swim in a controlled manner because we didn't want the overheating to start at 6:30 in the morning and then continue till 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So I swam my swim until the point that I was like, I actually don't think I can carry on. And then I had Regan Hollyoak came round and I sat on her feet. And she basically played that role for the majority of the day, just saving me when I was at the point of not thinking I could carry on. So it was 1.4k of me swimming my swim. Then I sat on her feet for 1.4 kilometres and we re-caught Teresa Adams, who'd gone out super hard. And then as we turned back into the canal, I think Teresa probably paid for her first kilometre. And Regan and I came round her. And I just prefer steering myself, so I just went back to the front and brought Regan in, especially as I knew that we were going to catch some pro men. So I wanted to be the one to control where we were going. But again, even in that final 1.4K, I wasn't able to push on. And then I got out the water and I was trembling, like shaking. I have never experienced it before. Matt's got a video and... that Matt didn't take it. Someone in transition took it in the tent. And I'm like, I'm going to be sick. And I'd been sick in the water. Sorry, Regan. Been sick in the water, and then was on land, and it was like I was just like properly shaking, and I've not experienced it. But then about a minute later, I was fine. My legs had come back because I was on solid ground again, and I could see. So got out onto the bike, and I was just relieved to not be in the water anymore. I started cycling, and I was like, I think my saddle's dropped. And I checked 3 times. I didn't get off to check because I knew that the stickers had lined up perfectly that I'd put on my saddle. And it hadn't dropped. But I just felt so cramped. And like, I don't know, 15 minutes in, my hip started to hurt just from the fact that I was in a position that I kind of didn't feel comfortable in. But I was able to ride pretty well for the first hour. And then Regan, and then it hurt a lot, and Regan came round, and I was able to kind of sit 12 metres back and just try and ease out what on earth, like the cramp essentially, or the muscle tension that I was experiencing in my right hip, which, yeah, it was a limiter, but then ended, like, in hindsight, it was a good limiter because it meant that I couldn't push on, but I was able to hold like fairly decent watts. And my position was good, so I was able to hold some pretty good speed. And I just focused on like making sure that I was taking in enough salt, making sure that I was taking in enough carbs, so that I could benefit from the fact that I wasn't trying that hard, rather than, I think sometimes when you're having a tough ride, it's much easier to just ignore fueling and ignore hydration and just like get yourself in a bit of spiral of self-loathing, and then you get to the run and you regret everything.
Yeah, and also it's the understanding of fueling on the bike for the run.
Yeah.
It's fueling what happens in an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours time, rather than just the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And there's obviously been like a lot of media hype over the last couple of races on punctures, because Chloe Lane had a puncture in South Africa and was stuck for 15 minutes. Christian Blumenfeld had a puncture in Oceanside, and that was like a whole palaver. Gustav punctured in Texas and I think he stopped twice to put more air in his tyre, and then he needed to get a new wheel. So it was like, yeah, I punctured. So I hit a rock. And we've actually found a little bit of damage on the carbon of the disc wheel. But yeah, and it wasn't sealing. So I quickly hopped off my bike and span it around really fast and put my finger over it. I was only stopped for about, 45 seconds. Feels like a lifetime, but probably about 45 seconds. And it sealed. So that was great. But then I was riding knowing that I had a slit in my tyre, and you just basically are waiting for it to reopen. Because the roads were, I don't know if anyone's been to America, but they've got these like expansion divots in. So it's like da-dunk, da-dunk, da-dunk. And sometimes they're not perfectly in line, and you're like, oh God, if that hits wrong, my tyre's going to reopen. But it didn't.
Yeah, so they're big concrete roads with these expansion joints, sort of freeze cracks, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they can be quite large in places.
And I got stuck in one. That was fun. It wasn't fun. It was absolutely terrifying. So I successfully performed 2 bunny hops on Saturday. I have never done a bunny hop on my bike before in my life, and I did it twice. Once was on the base bar over water bottle, and once was in TT position when I was in one of these divots. Because most of them are run like perpendicular to the road, but they also have them where like slip roads join, and there were loads of age groupers on the second lap, and I was just overtaking, and basically obviously when you're turning on a bike or when you're moving side to side, you don't turn the front wheel, you kind of move your weight, so you drift, which means that you stay in a straight line, which also means that you'll go directly, like you will just slot into these cracks. And that's exactly what I did. I just didn't think about it. I should have turned my front wheel a little bit, which is quite hard to do. But I just went straight in, and I was like, fuck, and then just like jumped. I couldn't. It was the only thing that I could think about doing was to go up, because I couldn't go forwards and I couldn't turn to the side. So I just jumped up and then managed to jump out.
So you channeled your inner Matthew or Stephanie van der Poel.
Steph van der Poel. And it was so good that the guy that I was overtaking was like, nice save. I was like, thanks, mate. And then I sat on the base bar for about 5 minutes trying to calm myself down because I was just, adrenaline was so high. So yeah, that was fun. That's probably the most impressive thing that happened in the whole race. Bunny hop in TT position.
So you came off the bike in 5th or 6th, I think it was?
6th, yeah.
And then onto the run.
Yeah, and so the first 6K of the run was the best I'd felt all day, which was a really nice way to start a new discipline. But it was clearly very hot, and so on the bike I'd had cooling towels on my arm pads, which were amazing, and then on the run I had another cooling towel that if you've seen the pictures, I've wrapped it around my neck and tucked it into my tri-suit, and basically it just holds cold water. So similar to the Omnius headbands that I was wearing, the Stone, you don't feel how cold it is, but it's there cooling you down. So yeah, I had the Omnius headband, I had a cooling towel, I was picking up ice at every aid station just from the off. So I started on my cooling protocol straight away, walking aid stations, making sure I was getting in enough water, because the point at which you feel too hot is too late. So I knew that it would slow me down, but I figured it would slow me down less than if I ran through all the aid stations and then basically had to walk the last 21k. And first lap got hard. The first half was good, then it got hard and got hot. Second lap was horrendous. I think just the juxtaposition of I'd been feeling really good, and then all of a sudden I really didn't feel good. I was still walking every aid station. I think I only walked an extra 2 sections away from the aid station, but my walking was a bit slower through the aid stations, basically. And I was stopping at tables and just covering myself with water. And then by the third lap, I'd got my hands on a bit more salt. I was still fueling, and it just started to come back round again, which was great. And my third lap was quicker than my second, which is awesome. For someone who's in Kona, it's been a downward spiral from the moment that I've been feeling hot. The fact that I was able to hold 8th, because Teresa was, I couldn't slow down because she'd have caught me in 9th. And there were girls running quick behind, so there was not I couldn't have gone any slower. So I held 8th, and I didn't get slower indefinitely through the race. Was big positive for me.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, the third lap I think was faster than your second lap.
Yeah,
which shows good control of your pacing and your
for sure.
cooling.
And I had a really good conversation with Kat Matthews after the race, just around mindset when it comes to heat, because it's not all physiological. So there are some people that just deal with heat better for various physiological reasons. There are ways that you can train yourself to be better in the heat, but also part of it is just encouraging your brain to be comfortable suffering in the heat, because it is hard, and it's hard for everybody. But the more that you are okay, the more you will be okay. So if I was to do the race again, my second lap wouldn't be as slow as it was, because I know that I will be fine. Whereas the learned behaviour that I had was, when I get to this point, it only gets worse. So I was trying to manage that to make sure it didn't get worse. And it didn't get worse, and it got better. So I know that next time I can probably push on a little bit more, have confidence that taking on salt and taking on carbs actually helps. And running with ice cubes in your hands is game changer. It brought my heart rate down by 8 every time. And yeah, so I think that is hugely positive for Kona.
Yeah, and in terms of, you've now done, like we've said, two races in the heat, being Kona. This was your third, probably one in
proper
tough
heat,
conditions, we'd say. What did you take from this one, or what did you go into it, I guess, with the understanding of what did you change to make it better?
Everything.
Okay. Give us a couple of key.
Yeah, so and I really do mean everything. So both Konas I've gone in to win.
Yeah.
I'd put a huge amount of pressure on myself to win my age group. So I was going out to race from the start. Whereas this one, as soon as we got the weather forecast and we knew what was going to happen, it's uncomfortable for me to go into races not wanting to be at the front. But we had an agreement that I would not be at the front of the race, because if I did that, I would pay for it. And what we needed was a confidence building race. So my entire race approach was different. And it was a reduction of about 10% of effort across swim, bike and run to then execute 100% of effort across the whole day. rather than, executing 100% on the swim, 100% on the bike, and then 20% on the run because I was walking for 6 hours. So that's the difference. It was just like leaving ego at the door and being like, you know what, this is my day to execute an individual time trial and use people where I can and how I can. Which, yeah, I mean, it worked. It was uncomfortable, but it worked. And I think that in itself is confidence enough for Kona. And then with regards to like specifics, picking up bottles every aid station, water, and they're cold for us when we go through the first time because they're literally just being laid out, which is great. So picking up cold water and just dumping it over myself. So over forearms, over face, over back of neck, over back, and then onto my, like, the cooling arm pads that I had as well. Having those cooling arm pads was big because it just meant that the cold water that I was taking from aid stations lasted a little bit longer, because I could just make them cold and they would stay cold for a couple more minutes.
So a big thank you to Baz at Aerogrip for those.
Yeah, they were, and his wife who sewed them into shape. They were amazing and worked perfectly. And then, yeah, I guess run is similar. So the run economy work that we've been doing has helped because it's meant that I've been able to keep my body temperature under control because I'm not using too much energy to literally just run. So even when I'm running even when I was running slower, my core body temperature was going higher and higher and higher, whereas that's just not happening anymore. So I'm able to cool down and manage my effort for the first time ever in my career, which is great. And then, yeah, walking aid stations. However, we did have a tip from Christian Blumenfeld at the finish line because he obviously performed incredibly well. And if you watch the stream, you will have seen him nailing every single aid station. So he runs through them and just necks water like there's a drought. But he suggested drinking warm water rather than cold water because your body can absorb it faster, and then just drink a lot of it.
Yeah, and I guess if you drink enough at the aid stations, you stop your competitors getting water.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Just dehydrate everyone else by staying so hydrated. But yeah, so I think they're probably the big tips.
Yeah, no, they're really useful. Thank you. And also, was that your third pro Ironman full distance?
Yeah, and it was my best Pro Series placing. So obviously I came second in Chattanooga last year, but that wasn't a Pro Series race. Victoria was, and I came 9th.
Yeah, and I actually think this was probably the strongest field you've raced.
On the numbers, yeah, it definitely was.
Well, and just you look at the girls in the top 10.
Oh yeah, I mean like this isn't like I think it is the numbers say it was the strongest field that I'd raced.
Yeah, and I mean that goes on to Kat at the front pulling out an 8:10, which is...
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely the what the buck moment of the week.
Yeah.
She gets that, and she gets it with bells on.
Yeah, so we'll give her that now.
Yeah, Kat, you get nothing, but I'll buy your coffee. Yeah, so Kat's race was... I mean, it was such a privilege to be on course with her. Not that I saw her after she just rode past me on the bike, but... to execute an 8:10, which is an Ironman world record, fastest ever on an Ironman branded course, is astonishing. And it's April, and I'm sure she feels like she's got more to give, which is just so exciting.
Yeah, and to run a 2:49 in those
conditions. So she ran 8 minutes faster than the next fastest woman, who was Tamra Jewett. And there were only two women sub 3 hours, which is really unusual nowadays. And Hamburg in 5 weeks' time, you'll probably see at least six women run sub 3 if the weather's not too hot. So it was, and the men didn't run that fast either. I think Kat ran faster than pretty much all of them, apart from like 8, which is hilarious. So yeah, it was a really tough day, and for her to execute that is amazing, absolutely amazing.
And what I really enjoyed seeing was just the confidence she came into the race with. She knew that, from the outside it looked like that if she executed her best or her race, what she'd planned, that she knew she was going to win.
Yeah.
And that's always quite exciting to see from the outside.
Oh, it is. It's fun to witness. Just, that kind of self-assurity, like, I just need to do what I know I can do, and then I'm going to do really, really well.
Whereas I think Taylor, there was definitely some nervousness, it seemed like, from the outside. I don't know if that's just her personality, it might be, but she did seem nervous, and from a lot of the interviews was talking about just securing her Kona slot, and just executing that type of race. So I think you can see how both athletes went into it very differently.
Yeah, and it must have been a challenge for Taylor, because this was only her second Ironman, and she's going in as the most talked about athlete.
Yeah.
Which is
and rightly
hard.
so. She's been the most dominant over the sort of half distance and T100 distance for the last year or two.
For sure. But she still doesn't know how to race this in her mind.
Yeah.
This is still a new distance. It's not tried and tested. And her first one being in Kona, there's only so much you can learn from Kona and take to other Ironmans, because it's a beast in itself.
Yeah, and I've no doubt she'll be up there around Kona time.
Oh, for sure. I think she'll be on the podium.
Like I say, she's come fourth at Kona in her first attempt on her first Ironman, and now she's come second to Kat in, again, a blisteringly fast pace. She even got the bike course record, 4:19.
Yeah, and not just the bike course record. So it was the Texas course record, but fastest ever on an Ironman bike course. On a course that was accurate.
Yeah.
So it was 180 kilometres, and a lot of the other fastest times are not. So Hamburg's short, for example.
Yeah, so all round some very impressive performances, and notable to Lisa in third as well.
Oh yeah, Lisa. Oh, she's just phenomenal in the heat, and that was something else that was interesting. Her mindset is that she is fine in the heat, and therefore she is fine in the heat. And I think it just goes to show like how powerful it is, that having that self-belief, and obviously you need to do things to fuel it, to be so assured that you are going to be fine. But if you just tell your brain and help it see that I am going to be okay in the heat, you really can be okay in the heat.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, isn't it? Because Kat, for instance, is from the UK, did phenomenal in the heat. Christian's from Norway.
Even more extreme.
Lisa's from Austria. A lot of these places, they're not warm countries, so it's not you were born in, I don't know, somewhere really warm, a warm climate, so therefore you're good in the heat. No. So all right, part of it is probably a physiological thing in the makeup, but also the training, whether that's heat training, there's something working for a lot of these athletes.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited to kind of keep exploring that and keep learning from people who do get it right and do it well, because they're the best people to take lessons from.
Yeah, and I think one big lesson we found is we found it really hard to heat prep when you were in full-time employment. It took a lot more. Yeah. Your time was limited to, you wanted to train. So we only had a finite amount of time to train. Therefore, if we were heat prepping, it would take up training time. And maybe at the cost of training. So we kind of, it was difficult to fit in, wasn't it? And now you've got more time, we can put more emphasis on that, whether that's training camps away in hotter climates, whether that's, like I say, heat protocols at home. So I think it's the dial's slowly working in the right direction.
For sure. And I think something that I've taken is my mindset is better. And I'm not just saying this because it means that I get to go to hot places. My mindset is better when I'm kind of fully immersed. So the juxtaposition in the UK most of the time from doing a heat prep session and then going out into the cold air meant that I felt like I wasn't ever properly adapting, whether or not I was. So it's almost like a reverse placebo effect. Whereas being in Texas and just being warm all of the time meant that I was getting more and more comfortable being warm all of the time. Like it wasn't a thing that was scaring me anymore, because it was like, well, I've lived like this for 3 weeks, so I'll be able to race better. And I've done a long run and I was absolutely fine. So I think it's, that like full immersion and just actually being warm day to day in and out of training. It was grim, especially at the start. And there were some horrendous sessions that were just, especially inside, that were so humid, but it really paid off for me and my mindset towards the race, because I also just knew where my limits were.
Yeah, and I think it's like I say, we've stepped off the plane in Kona twice now, and every time we've gone, whoa,
been a puddle
that is
on
warm.
the floor.
When the heat hits you when you get off the plane, that type of feeling, you kind of want to get off the plane and it be like, oh, okay,
this is fine. Yeah.
Or this is normal. Or this is cold.
That would be nice.
And I guess that's what you aspire to get to.
Yeah. So we'll get there, and it's been a good like practice run for Kona, and knowing that actually 3 weeks in the heat does a lot for me. So if we can do that before, probably. So we were looking at Texas, somewhere that isn't Hawaii, is a little bit cheaper, isn't quite as oppressive. Although Texas is hard in September. Yeah, maybe that will be where we go, and then hopefully another camp at some point through the year, just to top up on a bit more extreme heat.
Or any other suggestions on places?
Yeah, if anyone knows anywhere that's hot and quite humid in August, September time, that would be great.
Yeah,
maybe even July.
Where do people go for Kona?
Yeah,
let's just pose that out there. Do you want to give us your buck up of the week?
Oh yeah. So this one's I will be able to laugh about it. So race morning, we drove in, and the transition area is different to swim start. It's like a point to point. And I was like, oh, you know what, Matt? I'm going to take out my after race clothes from my bag for you, so that you're not carrying them around all day, or like you're not carrying them back from the swim. It'd be great if you could pick them up before you come to get me at the finish. And just took out the stuff, and went about my day, getting everything ready. Got to swim start, went to get out my swim skin. It was not in my bag. And I knew it had gone into my bag because I make a list and I tick things off my list. So I knew it had gone into my bag. And I was like, Matt, I don't have my swim skin. And he was like, where is it? I was like, it's in the car. And it was probably a mile back to the car. And this was
maybe Ansem.
15 minutes before the call out, the Pro Series call out. Thankfully, Brad from Precision was there, and he had a bike, and Matt jumped on his bike and went and got my swim skin from the car and got back in plenty of time. But that was my buck up, was I packed my swim skin. I just took it out and put it in the car completely by accident. So we'll not be doing that again.
Yeah, and it's usually one of those things that we, like goggles, you'd have doubles of.
I've got 2 pairs of goggles. I had 2 hats, but I did not have 2 swim skins.
No. So, big thanks to Brad
who also stood with me until Matt came back to make sure that I didn't implode.
Yeah, so if you did watch the live stream, you'll notice that Steph had her swim skin down.
It's because I'd literally pulled it on about 2 minutes before walking out.
She'd literally just put it...
And I went back to find Matt after call out to get him to do it up for me.
But no stress. I think it's how you handle it. And there was a process of what we would have done had that been the case.
Yeah, so I had a spare swim skin. Jana had spares. Brad had also sourced me another one that wasn't the correct sponsor, but was a swim skin. So there was solutions. I was going to be racing in a swim skin, but it was just that moment where your stomach drops out the bottom of you. Stomach that I don't really know what I was supposed to say there. And you're just like, oh my god, what have I done? And that's what I'd done.
So, but it was all fine. Didn't affect anything.
Oh, it didn't impact anything at all. It was just fun about 45 minutes before race start. What's next?
Well, I'd quite like to just run over our thoughts about Texas, what we thought of it. I'd firstly like to just thank everybody. Firstly, Jana and Jorge for looking after you and looking after me when I arrived.
They were babysitters for 3 weeks. It was wonderful.
Yeah, hosting us, looking after us, feeding us, and everything else in between. So thank you both to those guys. But also thanks to everybody else, like the community. I mean, I was only there for, the week. But the community of people in the area, like I say, we met some new faces, some familiar faces. So it was great to sort of catch up with a lot of people and everyone brought a good story or a good vibe and a smile to the place, didn't they?
Yeah. And I think I'd also like to thank 3 people that I'm pretty sure don't listen to the podcast. But Rusty, Julia and Patrick Langer, who in the 2 weeks that Matt wasn't there, were kind of constant companions for Yana and I, and we were swimming together in the mornings and riding together, and we had some pretty awful news while we were away, and yeah, very quickly they kind of helped everything feel like home, which made me feel much less far away. And it's people like that make these trips, because it's hard. Being away from home for 4 weeks is hard. Being away, being 6 hours difference on time zone is really challenging. So to have people that make you feel welcome and make you feel like you belong somewhere is really, really powerful. So thank you to everyone. And
for me, being at home, I didn't feel worried because I knew the company you were in. So that was nice. So.
Excellent.
So yeah, thanks to Texas. Like I say, I really enjoyed the place. The woodlands wasn't what I'd imagined. I don't know what I'd imagined, to be honest. I think I just imagined Texas, and I don't know what came with that. But it was nice. There was a lot of greenery.
It was super green, yeah.
Very flat, very hot. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
So I think on that we'll probably wrap up.
What's next?
Well, what is next? Okay, so next up we have Ironman Hamburg, which is another Pro Series race in June.
Yeah, so I said to Kat at the finish line, I can't believe we're racing again in 6 weeks. And she looked at me like I'd gone insane and was like, Steph, it's in 5. So yeah, 1st of June, on the Sunday the 1st of June, I will be racing Ironman Hamburg, which is now 4.5 weeks away. Which is so fun. So at the kind of point of finishing the race, I was like, I can't even think about that. But recovery has been pretty good. Like, I'm actually feeling better, the best yet after an Ironman, which is always nice, and excited, like really excited. I actually, on the first lap of the Texas run course, I said to myself, I've got a fast marathon in me when it's not this hot, which is really exciting to just have that confidence that the run is there when I'm not worrying about a red line that I can't cross, because when it's not hot, it's just you're more able to, your body forgives you a little bit more.
So fingers crossed for cool conditions in Hamburg.
Yeah, so if everyone could start doing weather dances, 20 degrees and raining is what I'm looking for.
Just rain on the run.
Rain on the run, yeah, we want a dry bike course because it will be safe. But if it could start raining within about 10 minutes of me starting the run, I would be absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, and another big start list. We know the likes of Kat's going to be there and Laura Phillip. So there's 1 and 2 from last year's World Championships.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who else will be there, but there'll be a lot of big names. So again, probably another stellar start list to put yourself up against. So that's exciting.
It is exciting. I love racing the best of the best. I just find it super motivating. So yeah, excited to see what we've got. And this week's an easy week of training, just to respect the fact that I did do an Ironman and I did do one in 30-degree heat. And then had to fly long haul home. So easy week this week, and then I would imagine it'll be 3 pretty big weeks, and then we'll taper.
Yep.
Just to, the physiological gains are more likely to come from the Ironman than they are from the training. But it's all about building confidence and making sure that the mind is ready to race once more.
Yeah.
Exciting.
And on that note, we will call it.
We are, because it's lunchtime.
And yeah, thanks again for listening. And thanks again to everybody in Texas. We'll be back.
We will be back.
On the podcast and in Texas.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.